I just played Gambit's Game of the Week.
I'm Todd Harper. I'm a postdoctoral researcher here at Gambit.
And I'm Abe Stein. I'm the audio director here at Gambit.
For anybody who's ever played video games before, you are probably aware that when it comes to queer, that's the word we're using, queer content, or at least queer relevant content, it's not really out there. And we wanted to find out what the process would be like of trying to make a game that included it. So we wanted to look at the process of what the team had to do, what kind of decisions they had to make, what kind of things they wanted to include, what kind of things they wanted to exclude, and kind of look at the end product and go, okay, so maybe these are some strategies we can suggest, some ideas we can throw out there for people who want to put this content in.
I think there was also a fundamental question about reading of games and what the process of reading a game is. And by that I mean how you interpret various elements that are a part of a game. And so that informed some of our design questions about how do we confront major questions about gender and sexuality and the complex relationship between gender and sexuality. And
what queer content even is, right? Question we asked ourselves a lot was, what does that even mean, right? And we have a partial answer now, although part of our partial answer is we don't really know. So, I think a major hurdle that Todd alluded to was this question of what constitutes queer content. And gender is such a complicated thing, and sexuality is such a complicated thing, and the interrelationship between those two is very complicated, and it's socially informed, and it's partially socially constructed, partially performed, partially all of these different facets that can kind of build a whole understanding of what these things might be, and then kind of engaging that in this media and leveraging the affordances of video games in a purposeful way was part of the major challenge. And I think it's what we butted heads on most of the time between us, with the team in general. So. Yeah, we spent spring prototyping, and a lot of that was spent in going, how do we make a core game mechanic that reflects something about queer experiences? And we got to the end of the spring and went, we don't know. So in the end, we decided to make a game that shunted a little more of that onto the fiction layer. But I mean, we still made a procedural way of representing things, right? Marking my spoilers, kind of the way that the game represents gender and the gender of characters is procedural and specific, and kind of is a way to get across a message. But it's working. A lot of the work of queering the game, for lack of a better word, is done by kind of the story of the characters. Yeah, we kind of, just to follow up on that, we kind of had an important moment, I think, when we were talking about the design of the mechanics of the game, where we decided, and I think in a positive way, we decided that trying to deliver some sort of concrete and whole message with the game would not be as useful as leveraging the game to ask a question. And when you think about it in a syntactical sense, games are like questions, because there's an offering of information, but then you're invited to respond. And so the communication is co-authored, it's bidirectional, as opposed to a statement which is intended to be processed, perhaps. So I think when we came up with that, when we were like, well, maybe we should just ask a question instead of just making a statement, that was a really profound, I think, and useful moment for us. So. We've got a decent amount of press, more than I was expecting, actually. And when people ask me about the game, they're always like, so did people draw on their personal experiences? Which to me always reads as code for, did you have a bunch of gay people making a game? The answer is, I don't even know. I didn't ask. I didn't think it was important. Well, that's wrong. It might be important, but I think that they were able to work out how important it was for themselves. And one of my favorite things that they did was, because you can write on the walls in the rooms that they are in with dry erase marker, they had this thing that was just, what even does it mean to be LGBT, right? And eventually it took up the whole wall. And I'm talking like a 5-foot by 7.5-foot wall. And it was just filled with their ideas and concepts of what that even means. So, no. I mean, I could not have asked for a better team, and we did not have any problems in any way. With any sort of artistic creation, obviously, you look back, especially one that you make in 8 weeks. 8 weeks! you look back and you go, wow, if only we could have done this. If only we could have done this. If only we could have done this. Of course, I have things that I would have changed. The team, I know, I've asked them, has things they would have changed. Did it meet the research question? Absolutely. Perhaps because really what the research question was about was kind of charting a course. The theme, I would say, that the press response to the game has had has been, people have said, regardless of whether they liked anything or not, universally we've said, we're so glad somebody did this. This was well overdue, right? So I think the fact that we were able to evoke that message in people pretty much means it was a success. I mean, we might not have captured the essence of queer content, but we got something that people could look at and go, this is a thing we weren't seeing before. And in the process, we learned a lot about how those challenges work out.